And welcome to another episode of Juice Moose TV. I'm still balls deep in Project Barbie Jeep for the girls. Where are we at today? So we're going to work on the brake system. This thing does run 35-inch tires, and if you're going to run tires that size, seem to have a stopping problem with the stock brake booster, stock brakes. I've looked at upgrading the brakes, but the Willington, whatever the fuck that kit's called, Wildwood, where the fuck it is, I've heard too many bad things about it, and that the stock system will work fine. The rear on mine's going to get an 8.8. We're not there yet, but the consensus is to find that elusive dual frame brake booster and master cylinder combo, but it's not made anymore. So I ponied up the $300 and something and went to Dave's Custom Unlimited, and I got their little kit there. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Alright, this is what it looks like. It's a lot freaking bigger, and this thing's not going to be driven for a while yet, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on, bleed everything, but actually we'll be able to test it for a while. I got a lot of other things I got to do. I've got some electrical issues, and I think my water pump's leaking. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, so the first thing you need to have, and make sure you have before you replace this master cylinder, is make sure that you actually have 18 cms on the gauge here, okay? At normal operating temperature. Not a big deal for V8s. Shouldn't be a big deal for this old bastard. She's got fuel injection, and all that old vacuum stuff is long gone. Has the minimal stuff on it nowadays. But let's go ahead and check it out. Let me pause this and warm up the engine. And this deflection, plenty of vacuum. Plenty of vacuum. Right off the booster. You should be good. You should have zero problems running this setup on this old YJ. Alright, the next step, this is not fun, but take out this bolt that holds on the brake pedal. Okay? That's got to come out. That's the first thing I did. Secondly, make sure that you have flare wrenches. Don't be a dipshit. Have flare wrenches or don't fuck with this. So my second step, take off the vacuum lines, unclamp them. The next thing I did was loosen up the brake lines on the master cylinder and take off the bolts. Alright, so master cylinder's off, booster's still on, I know. I was going to dry fit this mess for the aftermarket proportioning valve. This may take some time, I'll get back to you. So I've dry fitted all these lines into the proportion valve. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna reach anymore. This thing's all fucked up. I had to rebend this one and flare it. These other two are stock. They've always been like this, all fucked up. So we're gonna have some challenges ahead of us as we put the new master cylinder on. Next, we'll get the booster off and start putting things back together. I'm going to dry fit everything, then take it apart again. So I'm not going to bench bleed and all that. I'm just going to dry fit everything together, make sure everything's going to, work properly, and I'll be back in the next one. Okay, once the booster is out, just got to get off your brake switch. The new one comes with this adjustable push rod, which we have to adjust that later. But you can see there's quite a difference in these two bad boys, isn't there? Alright, so we'll get this off. Get it on this one. And we'll dry fit this bad boy on. Alright, found our first problem with the kit. As you can see, the original is nice and flat. This one is some kind of cattywampus fucking grinding. It has to be flat. Otherwise, this doesn't fit properly. It's got to be right butted up against the flat part. It doesn't go in like this, crooked and shit, okay? Can't go like that. It's got to go like that. But it can't go like that because it ain't fucking ground straight. So off to the grinder we go to make it straight. Also, the hole's not even fucking round. I don't know what's up with that bullshit. So we're gonna have to do a little grinding and make it work. Maybe this is the TJ one. I don't fucking know. Maybe you guys can tell me. So one of the hardest fucking things to do on this job is taking that bolt out. You can see it in here in the video, hanging out, and putting it back in. Taking it out and putting it in has been the absolute fucking hardest part of this fucking job. Now I'm trying to put it back in. I'm trying to adjust the rod, but the rod is just turning inside the booster. So I'm kind of fucked. I thought I could just lay down the floor and spin the rod in and make the adjustment, you know, make the pedals match and put it back together. Unfortunately, it's not working out like that, even close. I tried turning it from here, but this entire thing is just fucking turning. So I don't know. I guess I'm going to disconnect the booster again, only not from the firewall this time, but from the bracket. One thing of note, you see how close that is? That's close. Like, doesn't touch, but if you ever got to change the slave cylinder, it's going to be a fucking problem. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can notch it right here. I've already marked it for a small notch. I'll look at it when I get it off to see if that's actually doable or not. I've already dry fitted all this together. Bending brake lines is always a bitch. I'm not very good at making flares, but you know, they came out. Another thing to note, design flaw in my opinion, you will never ever get a flare wrench on here, ever, with this big monstrosity in the fucking way. This needs to be smaller, or this block needs to be bigger. I don't know if Dave's Customs will, you know, listen to me, but this is never gonna fucking come off with a flare wrench. They're just too big. There's just not enough distance between here and here. Okay? And you know as well as I do, these fucking things rust. So the only way to get this off in the future is probably gonna be fucking long needle nose vice grips. Because when they rust, regular wrenches just slip off and round them off. And yeah, design flaw in my opinion. This one you can get the wrench on, but from the back side here, but you can't slide the wrench over this. There's just not enough room between here and here. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's a 3/8 nut, okay? So getting it on here, shit, even that's hard. Okay, wait, 7/16, 3/8, barely fits. Try and get a good. I'm trying to move the camera around to get a good shot. I can't get it. Anyway, that's 3/8, man. And see, I can get on there. I'm on it on the backside, but there's absolutely no way on the top. Maybe you guys have tinier flare wrenches than I do, but this is what I got, and I cannot get it on there. Design flaw, massive one in my opinion. Anyway, I will give you more information as we move on. Alright, so I took the booster back off because, you know, I'm having some problems. Obviously the bottom out should be about here, maybe a little more, and I'm not even getting that far before the entire rod turns. This entire rod turns, so kind of hard to fucking adjust it when the whole thing fucking turns when it gets to a certain point. Very frustrating. But we're going to keep playing with it, see if we can come up with something. Alright, so I bottomed it out. The rod is all the way to here. She's bottomed out. I gave her the little notch, little die grinder, just to give me a little extra room. So it's easier to go back out than it is to go in. It won't go in any more than that. That's it. That's as far as she goes. So if it doesn't fucking match up now, we have a problem. If it needs to come out, we got room out. If it's got to go in, we're kind of fucked. I'll report back in a little while. Alright, kids, I gotta tell you what, man. This fucking nut and bolt was a goddamn fucking nightmare. If you're 280 pounds like me, I don't even fucking think you should fuck with it. Get one of your buddies that weighs like 165 or hire a goddamn midget. This was by far the hardest part of the job. And I don't even know if I ground too much off the rod. I don't know if it's going to activate the brake light switch properly. It looks like it is from what little I can see. But it's... if I got to go in here again, I'm going to be fucking pissed. But honestly, like, hire a fucking midget. And guys, I mean, I don't even have my fucking interior in this car, okay? Like, there's no interior in it. It's fucking empty. And it's still is a fucking bitch. So moving around, I gotta bolt all this. This is a 13, by the way. I gotta tighten these up, put these bolts back on. I gotta put the nut against the collar and dry fit everybody back together. I'll be back. This is it's turning out to be a fucking bitch. Hopefully it's worth it. Alright, so after you bench bleed, and I didn't, you know, do that for the video because there's plenty of videos out there on how to bench bleed. But after I bench bled it, tongue twister. Put it back together. I tightened everything up. Remember, I dry fitted everything to make sure everything worked, okay? So bench bleed, tighten everything up, look for leaks. So far, fingers crossed, no leaks. So just to summarize, this thing is massive compared to the stock one. You know, much bigger master cylinder, much bigger brake booster. To also summarize, in my opinion, the brake pedal was one of the hardest things to take on and take off. Maybe it's because I'm, you know, 280 pound fat bastard and they don't fit very well. And that's a possibility. Keep in mind my interior is completely out too, and it was still extremely difficult for me. I say the next hardest thing, perhaps takes two people, is to put these nuts back in right here. They come out easy enough, but you have to have someone on the other side holding a wrench on the nut, and then you have to be on the inside tightening them down. Not that hard, but again, it's pretty high up on the firewall, so hard to get to if you're a bigger guy like I am. Adjusting this rod was not easy. I ended up taking the booster out completely again. Again, I was dry fitting at the time. I took the booster out. I sunk the collar all the way down and then adjusted out as needed, because the entire thing inside here turns, the entire thing. Make sure you tighten up that nut. I added this little notch just in case I ever got to remove this slave cylinder or master cylinder, clutch cylinder. So I gave it just a little notch in case I got to wiggle it out. The next kind of hard thing, I mean, maybe not for you guys, but for me, making flares. I really suck at making brake lines. As you can see, they're not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. They're basically ugly as fuck. They don't match. I should have made them both like this, but I didn't. Because, you know, for you guys, it may be like, you know, you may be artistic and like making double flares and like making brake lines. Me personally, I'm not good at it. I don't like it. I did remove this thing and put on the stock one. So far, no leaking, but that allows you to get your wrench, your flare wrench inside now and tighten and loosen these. Because you know, once these things rust, a regular wrench just rounds them off and you're kind of fucked. So this was an upgrade in my opinion, putting that back in. Other than that, everything else is just pretty much straightforward. It's not a hard job. Just take your time with it. Fight the pedal. Make your double flares. Make your new brake lines. These you'll have to get at Napa. These two fittings right here. But the instructions tell you the part number. But that kind of wraps this up. Obviously, I'm not driving the vehicle. It's on jack stands. But it's done. I'll put in the comments in the future its stopping power. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps somebody.